Hey, folks, welcome to the Phillies Talk podcast presented by Team Toyota. Corey Seidman and Jim Salisbury here with you on a Wednesday. Jim, the Phils played the Blue Jays today in a spring training game. It was a high-scoring game, but the biggest news came before the game with Nick Castellanos' introductory press conference, which you wrote about at NBCSportsPhiladelphia.com. But what were your impressions of Castellanos as he was introduced by the Phillies?
Well, he's a guy who plays with some edge, and it seems to be his personality. Very serious, very direct and to the point. I called him "No Nonsense Nick" in my story. That was sort of based on a quote from Scott Boras, who says, he makes it no secret. He hasn't won. He wants to win. He's here to win, and he's going to win. So I saw him as a very serious guy, and that's fine. Compare and contrast the news conference with Kyle Schwarber the other day. He was kind of as cuddly as a teddy bear, and Castellanos was probably as cuddly as a cactus, but that's fine. He's here to punish baseballs and bruise baseballs and help this team win. And one of the things Dave Dombrowski talked about in October, talked about again today, was he wanted to remake that clubhouse a little bit. They have a lot of guys there who don't have the real winning pedigree, and Schwarber obviously has that. I think with 6 postseason berths, a World Series. And I think they wanted some edge in there too. And Castellanos is a guy who, biggest reason he's here is because of his bat. But he's a guy that brings some of that edge and seriousness as well. And that can only be a good thing because it's reached desperation stage around here to get to the postseason. And my big impression of him was this guy is really, really hungry, and he wants it. Quite badly. And very impressive day by Scott Boras, I have to say. He started off the day with a 9 o'clock press conference down in Fort Myers for Carlos Correa. He and his staff boarded a private jet right after that, flew up here to Clearwater, and then bolted over here for a press conference that started about 12:10. So,
wow.
that was pretty good effort. And so, that's that. We have all these introductory press conferences out of the way. It's time to get these guys ready to play and get them on the field. Kyle Schwarber got on the field today. 3 at-bats as the DH. He'll play the field on Friday. And Joe Girardi said Castellanos would likely be a DH on Monday. But I bet you could see it before that because he initially said we wouldn't see Schwarber till Friday, and we saw him today, Wednesday.
Schwarber led off. Gene Segura batted second. Harper was third. You read anything into that? Schwarber's first game in the leadoff spot. I think that means that he could be headed that way.
I talked to Joe about that before the game. He was, they were just trying to get Schwarber as many. They wanted to actually get him 2 plate appearances and get him out of there. They ended up giving him 3, but this was about he said getting him at bats. But that said, I think he's a very realistic candidate to lead off. Possibly against right-handers. So he's done it before. And I think they're intrigued about seeing him in the leadoff spot here and there, maybe quite a bit. But he's not going to tip his hand. He said this was more about just getting him at bats. But I think leadoff is a very distinct possibility. He did a pretty good job with it last year in Washington. He did it some in Chicago. And leadoff was a weakness for this team last year. They had a horrible on-base percentage in the leadoff hole. So it's something they would think about. And Joe has talked about, the days of the traditional leadoff guy who can fly, slap the ball around and fly, pretty much, not here anymore. And there are leadoff men out there that slug and get on base. They have different ways of getting on base. So I think it's a possibility, maybe coincidence today, but definitely a possibility down the line here.
Stuck out to me reading your Nick Castellanos piece, just his desire to win and how few playoff games he's participated in. I guess I didn't realize that. He's only been a part of 5 playoff games in his career, 2 different series, one in 2014, one in 2018. Both times his team was swept. So he's only experienced postseason losses, 5 career playoff games. He went 4 for 20 with a double and a homer. He talked about how he really needs to get a postseason win. So, he and the Phillies are kind of on the same wavelength there. It's just strange. I guess when you think about Castellanos' career, he was coming up the tail end of that Miguel Cabrera Tigers team. And then he's been so good with the Cubs and Reds that you would have thought that his teams would have had more success. But all this raking he's done has kind of come for naught.
Yeah, though he was on some good Tigers teams. It just didn't kind of happen for them over there. But he's just turned 30. He's not old by any means. He's going to be here 5 years, and with the amount of money you're paying him, the guy in left field, the catcher, Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, Reese Hoskins, you got a core. They got a long postseason drought. They need to end it. So if he wants to get to the postseason, his desire coincides with a city's desire and a team's desire and a clubhouse's desire. So they need to go out and make it happen. I think I've said this before. It's kind of, with $240 million payroll, with a pitching staff a lot of people like. I mean, they got to stay healthy, but with that payroll, with the stars you've got here in your lineup, no excuse. It's no excuses. I mean, I know they have shortcomings. Bullpen's a question mark. Defense is probably a double question mark, but you're going to have to fix them as you go along, and you're going to have to play over those question marks. They're going to score some runs, and it's kind of no excuse time when you're spending $240 million. You got to get to the playoffs.
So the news that Odubel Herrera is going to be out 4 to 6 weeks with this mild oblique strain changes the center field conversation, and it's good news, I would imagine, for Adam Hazley, whose chances of making the opening day roster have seemed to skyrocket.
Yeah, he swung it pretty good today. Had a couple hits. They all signs point to Matt Vierling as the guy they're going to give a good look to, but there's going to be, an opening for opening day, and it might be Hazley, just like last year. He sort of had a late surge and played himself onto the roster. We'll see. That's how it kind of shapes up. Joe Girardi, essentially said Mickey Moniak wasn't going to be the guy yesterday. He did get some time in center field there today, but pretty much, Hazley and Vierling, with Vierling, the guy they kind of want to look at. He had a hit today. He's an interesting guy, good athlete, throws well, runs well, hits the ball hard. So it's a nice opportunity for him. We'll see if he can seize it.
I got to ask you about something else you wrote about, which was that Nick Castellanos took some ground balls at third base, and Joe Girardi said, don't read too much into it. I mean, do you read too much into what Joe Girardi says with that? I mean, would he say anything even if it was legit?
No. I mean, it's our job to read into things, it's our job.
I mean, this is a topic just because third base is obviously a position the Phillies defensively at least have been weak at.
Yeah.
Nick Castellanos came up as a third baseman. He himself was not a good defensive third baseman, which is why he was moved to the outfield earlier in his career. But that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, here's why I read into it. Like, he's in camp, a half a day, and he's on the half field, which is just an infield. It's where infielders work out. He's on the half field, taking ground balls at third base under the supervision and tutelage of the infield coach, Bobby Dickerson. Now, Joe said that Castellanos just likes to take ground balls, and taking ground balls is fun. I can certainly understand that. Said he likes to take, balls in the corner outfield spots and at third base, part of his preparation for the day, part of his preparation for the game. And, I don't think that's unusual. I used to watch Mike Lieberthal take ground balls at shortstop with a catcher's mitt and do it quite well. I used to watch Carlos Ruiz take, probably 2 or 3 times a week, take ground balls at third base. He used to like it for his footwork, get his hamstrings loose, keep his hands moving. And so it has it's a useful exercise, I think, almost for any player. But I just thought the timing of him working out there and working and getting tutelage from the infield coach was interesting, vis-a-vis the fact that third base is unsettled. I don't think they're sold on Bohm. In fact, I keep hearing that he could be used in a trade possibly. You got Camargo, who's played at the position, been a regular for the Braves, and has looked pretty good in camp. I don't rule him out being the third baseman. They told Didi Gregorius last year that, maybe you might play a little third base. It hasn't happened. I don't think it's going to happen, but all I'm trying to make the point is the position is unsettled. It's unsettled. I think they would love Bohm to take control of it, but it remains unsettled 16 days before spring training. And it just, whether or not this is something that just Castellanos does for the fun of it, it feels like they're evaluating to see if he could do it as a possible depth piece someday if this unsettled aspect of the third base position continues. That's all. So, and Joe did admit, it's something you keep an eye on. You never say never. In an emergency, it's good to know. But it was all just very curious to me. And Joe said, I don't read too much into it, but you know what? Shoot me. I read too much into it. Or I'm not reading too much into it. I'm just reading into it.
When you say that Bohm could potentially be used in a trade, I mean, several questions. One, his value is substantially lower than it would have been like 18 months ago. I'm just wondering, what kind of trade would the Phillies even be? What would be worthwhile to trade a guy like that at a low point?
I don't know. I wouldn't trade him for a depth piece. He's a former first-round pick. He's young. Right. He's got upside. But who knows? I think it's a possibility. If the right thing came along, I think they'd be open to it. But I'm not going to give him away for a depth piece or back end starter or a depth starter. He's a pretty good talent. Yes, he had a bad year last year, but he's still pretty young. I don't get the feel he's locked down this position, so I don't know what they're going to do there. And I also have heard that for a while now that could be something that they're open to. So I think that's in addition something to keep an eye on.
And then one other guy I wanted to ask you about was Nicknelson, who pitched 2 innings, 2 pretty good innings, struck out 3. The only base runner he allowed was on a drop third strike. This is one of these many guys who's in the mix for the back of the rotation or the long man position out of the bullpen, especially given the Phillies' injuries right now, or just guys who are somewhat behind. Where do you think Nelson is on that depth chart? Is he kind of just in that mix with Bailey, Falter, and some others?
Yeah, and I think they're all in the mix because I think they're going to expand the rosters probably by maybe 2 guys. We talked about this yesterday. But I think they'll expand the rosters, and they'll probably carry extra pitching because with the short spring training, and especially with the Phillies with Eflin, he's not going to start until Saturday. And Wheeler's been a little bit behind, and Ranger Schwarber has been a little bit behind. They might be able to open the season on time, but shorter outings, and they'll need piggyback guys or guys that can give them a little bit of length coming in behind those guys after their start. So, guys like Nicknelson and Bailey Falter could all figure into that. Hard-throwing right-hander, strong-bodied guy, pitched for the Yankees a little bit. Obviously, control's been an issue. It's an issue with a lot of the hard throwers that they've picked up this winter, both in the bullpen and elsewhere. So, but you always take a shot at the arm. But, I think there's probably an opportunity for him, or it could be an opportunity for him with an expanded roster as they ease their starters into the season and just kind of nip back at their workload a little bit out of necessity, just because it hasn't been a long enough, or won't be a long enough spring training to get them stretched out to where they ordinarily would be on opening day.
So the Phillies are in Bradenton tomorrow, and then they are back home against the Yankees on Friday. That game on Friday against the Yankees is on NBC Sports Philadelphia Plus at 1 p.m. But first off, Jim, what do you have your eye on Thursday? Is that an Aaron Nola start there in Bradenton?
That is an Aaron Nola start in Bradenton, and I have my eyes on the encroaching cloud cover. The tarp is on the field here in Clearwater at 6:35 in the evening, and the wind is starting to whip, and it's getting chilly, and there's a front coming in. So it could be I've heard varied reports. It could be a washout tomorrow, but it might be okay in Bradenton. Who knows? They would love to get Aaron Nola on the mound in a game and have him make his second start. That's where you get the best work. But if not, they're going to have to, if it's a washout, they're going to have to figure out a way to get him on the mound somewhere, maybe inside, to face hitters, to keep him on his day and on schedule to make that opening day start, because he lines up to be the guy to do it.
All right, Jim. Well, thank you very much. And thanks to all of you out there for listening. You guys seem to be loving this, so we're going to keep the daily podcasts coming all through spring training. For Jim Salisbury, I'm Corey Seidman. Thanks for listening to Phillies Talk.